Thanks for being with us today at the Dementia Resource Expo. That was a great presentation that we just heard. A wealth of knowledge, a wealth of background information, the history. I just learned so much. We still have a couple of days with the expo, so hopefully you can tune in this afternoon. Stay with us right now for another great speaker. We have more speakers tomorrow. Today, I want you to thank you for being with us, for taking the time out of your day to learn about some of these resources at the Expo. I'm Renee Horn. I'm a caregiver support coach with Elder Options, and I'm honored to welcome our next guest speaker, who I have the honor to know personally, Deb Savage. She was introduced to dementia when she became a caregiver for her husband. She then began the journey to find resources and support for herself as a caregiver. Sometimes that can be a daunting task, and eventually she progressed into becoming an independent certified trainer and a certified consultant in Teepa Snow's highly respected positive approach to care, and launched her own company, Coping with Dementia. Sometimes we need to focus on ourselves as caregivers. So today she's going to be speaking specifically on the topic of gratitude. So thank you for being with us today, Deb, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
Well, thank you, Renee. I appreciate that introduction. Another thing that you didn't mention, too, is that I am a Savvy graduate.
Yes, thank
So
you.
all this time that we had the ability to introduce caregivers to your Savvy program, there was a little bit of gratitude for Ed and myself that we didn't have a lot of bookings, so we could actually take the Savvy class, because we didn't have 7 weeks that we could just not schedule anything out. So for us, we're looking for opportunities of COVID, and that's what we're talking about today.
Thank you.
So we are, and I'd like to thank everybody for inviting me to be here for the first Dementia Expo. I'm sure everyone would have loved to have been in person like myself, but we didn't have that opportunity due to COVID. But as Renee said, I was introduced to dementia with my husband, Albert. And I like to make sure that everybody knows that his name is Albert, because we want to take away the disease as the disease. There's an actual person that we're talking about through all of these resources that we're talking about. They're actual people that are living with dementia or other ailments, but I'm specifically talking about dementia. I did get involved after Albert's passing in 2010 with the health industry, and I became an administrator, and became an administrator in memory care, which I soon found out that I just fell in love with. We developed our company after that journey of being an administrator, and knew that there was a lot of caregivers out there that didn't have the resources and the understanding of what they were actually dealing with dementia and their partners. So we created Coping with Dementia, and our company is basically an education and training company to work through seminars, workshops, conferences, and to actually give people, caregivers, care partners, the information about the symptoms and characteristics. Every one of our folks that are living with dementia, their behaviors are telling you a story. And that's where we have to be little detectives and kind of figure out what they're communicating to us. We have done that in many different ways. One of which I'm going to talk about today is a gratitude list. Now, a gratitude list or a gratitude journal may be something that some of you caregivers might be saying, are you kidding me? I am not going to do this. I don't have time for this. This is the stupidest thing I've ever heard of. Well, it might be. And it might not be if you have the time to sit down and think about your day. It is a really hard journey to be a care partner to someone living with dementia, but it doesn't have to be all negative. And when we think about the losses, they're huge. And like Dr. Heilman just said, it's not just memory. Things aren't just one type of loss. With dementia, there's many types of losses. There's ability, there might be recognition, there may be functionality and having to do activities of daily living. Those are all losses. Those are negative things that we focus on about the disease. But what I have done with coping with dementia is try to give you the positives. How are we going to look at this journey? Because it could be something that could last 8 to 12 years. So how can we teach you to live in the moment? That may be very difficult for some people to realize, but that's all we have. So what we would like to do is talk about what is a gratitude list and its benefits. And there are benefits. We know that negative, we can do this all day long. We can talk about all the things that we have lost, the negative parts of this disease. But there is some joy, and as care partners, you're doing a really good job, and you should recognize yourself for doing that. This is not an easy journey. We will eventually lose the friends that we primarily had. So we are just doing this on our own, but we don't have to do it all on our own. Creating a journal is a feeling of appreciation and thanks. It has gained a lot of attention about the things that it does positively for us. There's many different benefits for journaling. Now, journaling doesn't have to be a lot. It could be just a couple of words, a couple of sentences. It could take maybe 10 or 15 minutes at the beginning of your day or at the end of the day. A quiet time that you can reflect on how well you've done or what you might want to change. The other benefit in this is that while we're journaling, we may see some behaviors that are happening to our person that are changing. But because we're so stressed, we may not be able to reflect that if we go to a doctor's appointment. We may not be able to reflect the whole story. So what will happen is that now you have a story to show to the physician, and so that they can better determine what is happening, when it might be happening, and how we might be able to help that person walk through it easier. We want people to have a better quality of life. That was mentioned by the previous presenter. This whole expo for the next day and a half and the day before is about resources, but it's also about providing you care partners with a better quality of life. That's all we have to work with. So when we're working in that moment to figure out what is happening, we can avoid things that could trigger some of these behaviors that look upon as negative. So by journaling, we're going to see how we can change it, how we can give a different perspective on what is happening, how we can help the physicians to better apply or prescribe medication if that is needed. Medication is used to help us redirect, help us manage better, but not to over-medicate. And we can be a part of that. It will lower your stress. It will make you feel calmer that you have actually reflected on the day, how it's happened, what has happened, maybe what you can change. It's given you a perspective, like we said, about how important it is what you are doing, how you can change your environment. The clarity, it is really something to see caregivers lose their perspective on what is happening because they don't have the input or because they don't have the support. They lose the idea of being able to manage this. They lose their patience, but you shouldn't have to beat yourself up with that. We want you to look at this as a learning tool for you. It helps you focus on the matters. It helps you focus on the things that are happening and then how you can better deal with them. You know, when we go to a physician's office, we are probably so stressed that we can't focus on one situation. It's just the whole problem. And that really is not beneficial for you or beneficial for the person you're caring for. We want to focus on a situation and deal with it as it comes up. By journaling that, you are isolating the things that are happening. And maybe you can actually find out the pattern. You can see the pattern by journaling. A gratitude journal is something that is just for you if you want to share it with anybody, but it is just for you. It is reflecting on what you have done. Maybe you've made a mistake. Maybe you have done something really well and you want to make sure you do it again. On days that you're feeling a little less than, you want to read through the journal and see what you have done, because this is not anything that is easy. This is a very, very difficult journey, being a care partner to someone with dementia. We mentioned just a minute ago that we mentioned memory. Memory is most commonly the most familiar thing that people recognize as something that a person living with dementia loses. But in actuality, it is the most in your face. But what it is only one part of it. We are losing the ability maybe to recognize, we're losing the ability to manage our own activities of daily living, which could be dressing, grooming, eating, going to the bathroom. Memory is one of those things that repetitiously, when we hear our person asking millions of questions, but really only repeating one over and over and over again, that's what we recognize. But it's way more. And this is what the education part of this expo is about, to learn about what is happening and how I can better react to that. Journaling helps you do that. Journaling helps you reflect on the day, helps you reflect on maybe some of the things you might be able to change. You need to keep it readily available for you so that when you want to write something down, you just jot it down. It doesn't have to make a lot of sense. It just needs to be something that you get into a habit with to do. Five to 10 different things, maybe something that you're grateful for. What we want to do is change the shift and allow you to understand that you are a viable part in the management and the change of environment for your person living with dementia. We want you to be the focus of how well you're doing, but we also want you to also have the understanding to find some gratitude in the day. We want to shift the negative. During this time of COVID, Coping with Dementia has been continuing with their support groups. I've been running support groups for probably about 9 years, but being not something that we can do in person, we resorted to going to Zoom. And we're doing 3 support groups a week. And what we have seen in the support groups, and we did talk about gratitude there, and it has shifted the ability for some of our care partners to start to look at something on the positive side. Now, the other advantage of having Zoom with COVID, and that is something that we are grateful about, is because we never would have done any kind of virtual support groups, but we have found that the frequency, we do 3 support groups a week, when in real live time, in real person, I was only doing 2 a month. The frequency of being able to meet with these care partners so often is we can deal with situations as they come up. They don't get so frazzled. They don't get so out of control, and they don't lose their perspective. So the journal can help you do that, because you can review your day. You can look at things in a different way and start to be grateful for the things that you do have. One of the things that we look at with our support groups is we try to have our caregivers write a list of all the things that our person living with dementia cannot do. And they don't have a problem telling me all the things that they cannot do. And then I'll say to them, give me a list of the things that they can do. And they'll look at me like I've got four heads and they'll say, did you just see this list that I wrote? It's huge. I said, but tell me what they can do. This is what we have to focus on, is the abilities and the functionalities that they have left. To be positive in the daily activities of interaction with that person, with your person, with your loved one. But that also goes for you. Think of the things that you are grateful for in the journey of dementia. I talk about Albert in all of my workshops, in all of my support groups, because I want people to understand that there was a real person that was living with dementia, and his name was Albert. I would not be here without that experience. Was there some really bad times? Absolutely. I will not discount that, and I will not ignore that. But were there some wonderful times that brought me to the place where I am now? Absolutely. Did I know to write those down and share those with a physician? No. Did I write those down to share with myself that I did the very best that I could? No. That's why I'm here to tell you or to talk to you about how I've seen that work for most care partners. They've enjoyed writing down the good day that they've had, the fun day that they've had, the new people that they might have met. It's really something that most people will focus on the negative. And what the negative does is create a lot of problems that we manifest in our caregiving. And that is not really good for both of you. And we're talking about a quality of life that is better for both of you, not just for the person living with dementia, but we must think about you as a care partner. But what happens when we start looking at the things that we're grateful for, the gratitude journal, how well that you've done as a caregiver, how well you are doing as a caregiver? The brain automatically releases dopamine and serotonin. These are two critical emotions that we need to feel good. It's what we do to enhance our mood. Immediately we feel good. We also do that with music. Music makes us feel good. So by creating something that's going to happen during the day that is more positive, or the things that we end up doing that do work out well and we want to do them again, we have that feel good chemicals of dopamine and serotonin. And would our day go by better? Would our interaction with our person be better? Absolutely. So we have seen in our support groups some remarkable transformation between people 7 months ago that didn't even know what they were going to do, because as the world shut down, so did their world. Your world as care partners became much more isolated like everybody else's, but you don't have and didn't have those resources to create a break, a breath, to take a breath alone. So you have to create those times differently. But what I have seen in our support groups is the creativity of getting that dopamine and serotonin by creating new relationships based on what we have in common. What might give us that time to feel grateful that we have 15 minutes to talk to somebody else and my person is enjoying another person's time. That can be really exhilarating, that you can make it another day. We have caregivers that never would have thought 7 months ago that they would be laughing, that they would be having fun, that they would be reaching out to someone that they didn't even know that was 2 miles from them to be able to meet up, and the four of them have maybe a time that they go play billiards or meet with some other people that are going through the same journey and have a birthday party. it's different. It's not traditional. It's not the way we used to do it, but we have to learn to do things differently. This journey of dementia is extremely different, and we have to learn to help you as care partners reduce the stress that you're experiencing. This disease creates more stress than people really give that credit to. And what happens to our care partners is that they don't take care of themselves. And that's one of the modules in the Savvy Caregiver program that Elder Options supplies to caregivers for free. And one of those, I should say, one of those assignments was, what are you going to do for yourself? Sometimes when you're doing your journaling, it may not have anything to do with the person you're caring for. It may have to do about you, and that's okay. We want the focus for you to maintain as long as you possibly can. And that has to happen with a lessening of stress. This job of care partnering to a person living with dementia is extremely stressful, but it can be extremely joyful. We just have to figure out how to do that. And by giving you enough tools and enough resources, when I first started the support group, I wasn't too sure how this was going to work because we didn't have adult daycares that were open. We didn't have community centers that were open. We didn't have home health that was able to come in. What was I going to do? How was I going to provide resources to the care partners to make their job easier, make their journey easier? It's not about making it easier, but what we found out is that the resource was themselves. The resources was coming together and supporting each other, that they knew that they could make it if somebody else could make it. By giving advice, not necessarily by making suggestions that this might have worked. It has really been a remarkable transformation, and I'm grateful that I've been able to experience it. It has really been a benefit for myself because I like to be in person. So this was something that was connecting me back to people that needed some support. You know, the stress that our care partners are experiencing is not something that we should ignore. And I'm not making this gratitude list something that is a fluffy and foo-foo-y and, if I write it down, it will go away. If I write it down, it will be fixed. That's not what this is about. This is really about becoming more optimistic about your journey. I can't change that. I can't change your person not having dementia. I wish I could. I can't take it away. But what I can do is try and provide you with as much quality of life that the both of you can enjoy this journey, because there really is some enjoyment in the journey. Reminiscing is something that comes along with gratitude, because what your person living with dementia does is they revert back into an earlier time for themselves. And maybe it was a simpler time. And so reminiscing can be really quite connecting to some folks. A lot of our caregivers assume that they're always going to forget me. And I have this conversation with many folks. They may forget with the changing of their verbal communication, they may forget how to say your name. They may forget that you might be their wife. I was one of the lucky ones. Albert did lose his language skills very early, but he always knew who I was. And I knew that because of his behaviors. I knew that because he smiled whenever he saw me, or he put his hand out. But for some of our folks, not saying their name could be just as traumatic as anything. But they still know, working on feelings, that you are who needs to be there. You are a positive force in them managing this journey. You are the person that they need to have in this journey. So you have to look at things in a different way and adapt. Adapting is something that is very difficult for some of our caregivers to do, and I understand that. Things are changing, and they don't like it. The journey of dementia is not something that is for the light of heart or the faint of heart. It's not 100% terrible, but it is a disease that is taking your person away. Their brain is dying, and there are changes that are going to happen every day. The focus that you need to have is more positive and more understanding to the person that this is not personal. They are not doing this if they had a choice. It is the disease. They are in there. We just have to figure out how to get them out, how to bring them out, how to give them the safe environment to be successful. You know, there's so many stories that you could see about people that live with this disease, and they are still in there. The behaviors are who they are. We can't change who they are. So if a person has been one way or the other, they probably will be the same during dementia journey. But that's who they are. We have to adapt. The other thing that the gratitude journal also allows you to understand is when it's time that you need support. It's not time necessarily that we have to place someone in a long-term care community. Most of our caregivers don't want to do that for many different reasons. But there comes a time when you do need support. It's not when, it's not if, it will happen. You will need support. And that is the one way that you can get through this journey, if it's support from family, from friends, or professionals. It is not a negative by any means that you need support. It is a positive that you've recognized that you need support. The more that you can learn about the disease doesn't mean that you already have an anticipation that it's going to be the worst ever. So many people have preconceived notions about what stages are, what will happen, what is going to happen. That's not necessarily the case for everyone. This is why our physicians are having a difficult time, and this is where we need to help our physicians understand our person and the disease. But it doesn't necessarily happen the same way for everybody. This is an individual disease. This is very different from many different diseases that we have seen. So it is happening in many different ways. Some people will never be bedridden, like my Albert. He walked to the day they took him into the hospital. Some people are bedridden. Some people are very healthy. We hear that a lot. All they have is dementia. That was Albert. We always assume different things. Having an understanding of what the disease is, what the process is, how you can effectively deal with it, how you can have the quality of life that you both want, it doesn't have to stop because of a diagnosis of dementia. It may have to be altered. It may have to be adjusted. These are all things that can happen by journaling, because it will lower your stress enough to protect you from depression. You will be able to sleep better. It will keep your immune system in check, and it will also improve some of your relationships, because who wants to be around someone that's always negative? There's a lot of benefits to it. It's really funny because Albert was a journaler, and I hated journaling, and I think I saw somebody come up in the chat that said they hated journaling too. Well, I did too, and I find it really interesting that here I am talking about it and have talked about it. And I also have wrote an article about it in our local paper. We have been grateful enough that our local paper here in Citrus County has a monthly column from Coping with Dementia, and it has been that way for about 5 years. So we are very grateful. And it was time for a gratitude list. So I find it really funny that here I am talking about doing something that I myself didn't do, but do see the benefits incredibly. And now that we have, computers or phones, we can do this electronically. We can do this right on any mobile device that we have. It doesn't have to be something that you sit down and have to write or think, or you make notes or you make mistakes. Just do it on anything that happens to be handy for you. It is truly a way that we can change our environment. When I talk about the things that we can do to change our environment, we always look at it as who can we change and how can we change our environment for the person that is living with dementia. And that, although is very true and it's very important, of course, now that we're seeing that it's getting darker sooner, it is very important that we change our environment to avoid sundowning and things like that. But we also have to change the environment for our caregivers. Our caregivers or care partners can only give what they have. And if they are stressed, if they are overtired, if they are overworked, if they are overwhelmed, they can't see clearly. This may help all of that in those challenging times. I admire all of my interaction with my caregivers because I learn from them. I have grown and learned how to handle different situations because of what comes up. Most of us as professionals may not have all the answers for you. Although we would like to, we don't. But there are so many resources out there for you to be better educated and to be interactive with people that are going through this journey, finding out different ways of being grateful, finding out different ways to have more of a positive effect in our lives with dementia. I know that that is something that's very difficult because for some of us, when we're talking about a person that we've lived with our whole lives, there's a certain amount of role. And in one of my groups this week, there was a care partner that wasn't too happy about taking over more roles than she wanted to, such as her husband did most of the car, dealing with the changing of oil or buying a car or fixing it or repairs. And she realized that it was something that her husband wasn't comfortable doing any longer. She didn't want to take over that role. So there are going to be roles that we don't necessarily want to do. This is where getting into a group, a support group, most definitely, is going to be beneficial because you're going to find out how to find some of those coping mechanisms for each of us. There are many different things that will make a difference in your life. And when you're living with someone with dementia, music is one of those therapies that is absolutely incredible to see what will happen to both of you when you are focused on your favorite song or something that just makes you smile in the midst of something that wasn't so pleasant. There are many different therapies that we try to promote that are not pharmaceutical, that we can work with a person with validation, we can work with music. There are plenty of resources out there and things that we can purchase to help that happen in a more easier way than just talking to them. Maybe if there's some verbal skills that are not as easy for them, music will make that easier. There is activities we can do. There's just some of the things to slow down and take a look and be grateful for what we have at this point. It always can be something that can make a difference in both your lives. The information that is out there is really, really quite good. But before I close, and I have a few minutes before questions, I'd like to read a poem about Alzheimer's. And you know what, it's not to make someone feel bad or upset, but I always have myself leaning to having a care partner understand what is happening to their person. And the more that you can understand and feel what is happening to that person, the better caregiver you can be. And if you can't be that caregiver, we can find support for you to help you be who you want to be. But this poem goes, do not ask me to remember. Don't try to make me understand. Let me rest and know you're with me. Kiss my cheek and hold my hand. I'm confused beyond your concept. I am sad and sick and lost. All I know is that I need you to be with me at all cost. Do not lose your patience with me. Do not scold or curse or cry. I can't help the way I'm acting. Can't be different though I try. Just remember that I need you. The best of me is gone. Please don't fail to stand beside me. Love me till my life is done. What has happened in our support groups that I really enjoy is when the person with dementia comes into the group and they just enjoy it immensely to see all these faces in the screen and to be able to communicate with them and to ask them about what they did and who they were, and in a respectful way. It brings you to a point for people to see him. And especially as a care partner, you start to have your person back just a little bit. If I can do that in some way to give you back your person for just a few moments, if it's with music, if it's with reminiscing, if it's with validation, I want to teach you how to do that. Starting out by just writing down to not only help you, help a physician, but also help the person you're caring for is what I would like to do. We do, and I'm sure that Dementia Expo here will provide you with any of my support groups, any resources that I can provide to you through Coping with Dementia. I will be more than available to do that. The one other thing that is grateful for us for the Zoom meetings, as we've been doing for the last 7 or 8 months, is that there's no boundaries. Before, when I was doing the support groups in my particular county, which is Citrus County, there weren't going to be people from many other counties coming to those groups. When we are here virtually, we have people from all around the country. People from Canada, people from Ohio, people from Tampa, people from state of Washington. So there again, it's changing how we interact. And there are some really bad things about being isolated. We've seen some really, another thing to be using this journaling for is the decline that we have seen with our folks with dementia during this time. But we've also seen declines in our care partners. So this is something that needs to be addressed. But we've also lifted up the boundaries. We also can provide you with some support. Just ask, because it's out there. And I'd like to see you start doing something that is just a little bit different that could be a benefit to you in the future in your caregiving journey for your person living with dementia. There is lots of things that are happening virtually that removes the demographic or the geographic boundaries, which is something very different than we used to have. So there is opportunities out there, and there is support. And right now it's not in the normal support that we have seen in the past year, but it is in different ways of support. And that's what's been helping me understand through the virtual support groups that there is still different ways of connecting with people to give you that breath, to give you 15 or 20 minutes or even an hour of joy. And if you can continue to do that through your journey of dementia, it will be the most rewarding experience you'll ever have. I really do thank Dementia Resource Expo for inviting me to speak here. If there's anybody that has questions, I'm sure that they will do that. You know, we can look at those. I don't know if I have seen any on the chat. But there is really some very positive things that can come from your journey. I have thoroughly enjoyed my time being able to work with folks, care partners for people living with dementia, to be able to have them just see something in a different way, that maybe they might not have looked at it before they walked in to a meeting or a workshop or anything else. What are a couple of really unique things you have heard being grateful for? You know, I will give you an example. We were at our support groups, and there was a couple of folks that were from the Villages area. They didn't know each other, but as we were talking to the husbands, the wives started thinking that there could be something in common for the husbands. So when they found out that they only lived about 2 miles apart, they decided to have kind of like a play date, and they went and played pool. So the gentlemen, the first meeting that they had, they went on a pool, I should say they called it billiards, but they went on a billiards date, and the women, the wives, played a game with the husbands and then sat down and just kind of watched them. The second time, they kind of got them started and then sat down. Now the gentlemen are coming in and playing their game of billiards, which nobody knows what kind of a game they're playing. And the women are now sitting on the patio having a conversation. And what we have heard from some of our care partners is that they would like to have, quote, a reasonable intellectual conversation with somebody else that could have dialogue. So I'm grateful for many things in the support group, but I'm also really grateful that they are creating their own support. You know, so many of us have a loss of friendships during this disease journey, and that is very difficult for a lot of people. And I can't make it any better, but unfortunately, when people change and we can no longer be who we were, relationships change. But what we've tried to do is say that these relationships here are in the same journey that you are. These folks here are in the same journey, and they will have an acceptance of things that might happen. And that is what's happening. We have had many connections in the support groups that have changed people's lives. In fact, one person had his wife in a long-term care memory community and was extremely depressed, was extremely distraught that she wasn't recognizing him. They were not great visits. They were both crying. And he got with our support group, and within 2 months or 3 months, he decided to bring his wife home. He is tired, he is exhausted, but he has a purpose. So I guess through all of this is providing people with a purpose and providing people with the right kind of support has been very grateful for me in the support groups, that we've been able to give them a platform and a venue to do that. They've taken it to many different lengths. They've connected with people, they've visited each other. There's been something that's been really kind of funny is they started out with Amish starter breads, and so the starter bread has gone all the way around. I mean, it's gone from the Villages to Largo and Seminole. We've delivered this to people. So what I'm also really happy about is that the support group 7 months ago were not as friendly, not as lively. They're laughing, they're crying, but they're laughing, and they are able to make it. They are able to do it with the support. And when they're having a bad day, they text each other or they call each other. So for me, there's been an enormous amount of opportunities in this time of COVID to, one, slow down, think about the things that you're grateful for, think about the things that you have not, that you don't have, what you can do, what you can't do. It's been remarkable, just been really remarkable. And I hope that answered your question. Can your support group information be found on your website? The support group information can be, I think it does go away, but you can email me. I'm sure they will supply you with my email. Feel free to email me and I can give you the links. We do these on Tuesday, 1 to 3. We do it on Thursday, 1 to 3, and Wednesday evening, 7:30 to 9:30. So I'd be happy to send you some support group links. They can supply you, I'm sure Renee can supply you with my email. And anything else that we can do for you is not a problem because of Zoom, and you guys are all savvy with Zoom. But the support group information is, and let's see, I think that was, somebody just, I think it was Renee that just mentioned about laughter. It's not that we want you to laugh at your person. That's not what I don't want to do. And I don't want anybody to remove a person living with dementia's dignity in any way. But laughter is one of the best medicines. You are right, Renee. Laughter is most definitely one of the best medicines. And that is not laughing at the person. That is laughing or humorous with some of the things that happened. You really can't make up some of the things that we hear that happen. There are many stories that you wonder, how could this be? But it is the brain dying, and they don't have all the connectivity to make sound decisions. They don't have awareness of what they're saying. They, of course, lost their filters to be able to know what is correct and what isn't correct, which brings some humor into it because they have lost those filters. There can be some really hurtful times because they've lost those filters. But by understanding the disease and being around people that are actually accepting of the disease, we lose that stress factor. And that's what's happened with most of the group that has gotten together. There is a definite acceptance that they've all gone through it. Albert did some really incredible things and some things that are very scary. When we think about an older adult going through this disease, we don't think about a child the same way as far as protection. But we do protect our children from many different things, and we have to do the same thing for our persons living with dementia. So it's not just about journaling. It's not just about, this is where this disease is all encompassing. We have to think about our person leaving the house, using chemicals in the wrong way, not being able to find the restaurant. There's all kinds of things that we're dealing with that we don't normally have to do with many other types of diseases. So there's a lot of things that we don't think about. I myself didn't think about the chemicals until I realized that Albert was using some very powerful chemicals in cleaning his coffee cups that actually took the surfaces off of enamel. Would I have thought about locking up chemicals or doing those kinds of things? No, because I thought he was an adult that knew the difference. So having some support, and wanting to be not reactive but proactive. And I think that's really the basis of not doing something later, but doing something sooner and getting informed about some of the things that I should take precautions. It doesn't mean that we have to do things um, to like a child. That's not what I'm trying to say. But we do have to worry about if I'm overtired and I fall asleep and my person walks out the door. We do have to worry about putting alarms on the doors or securing the house in some way, making it friendly and safe. And that way they can be at home till the day that they are no longer at home. We want to put those things in place so that they can be there as long as possible. We want you to make the environment safe. We want you to be able to care for this person as long as possible. All of this happens by really journaling what is happening, and we can help you with some solutions. And there may have to be a time, and it doesn't mean that you are a failure. There may have to be some time where you eventually have to think about long-term placement. That is not because you're a failure. That is because you've recognized that you can no longer provide what you want to provide to the person that you love. And that is okay. I myself had to do that. Albert started leaving the home. I didn't have some of the resources that we have now, or I wasn't aware of some of the resources. This was over 10 years ago. And when he started leaving the house, I had our local sheriff's department. I didn't have them. They brought him back to the house 3 times. And on the 3rd time, I realized that our home environment was not something that was it was no longer safe for Albert to be there while I was at work. So I had to look at some day type of care, and then eventually into a long-term care environment. That didn't necessarily work out for him until very late in that journey, but it did teach me about compassionate care, person-centered care, empathy. It taught me about all of that, and I'm glad that we went through that journey. That's not because I was a failure as a caregiver. It was because I could no longer do what this person required. And that's really difficult for some of our care partners to understand and to accept. But we have to look at how you are doing. During this COVID-19, COVID-20, whatever you want to call it now, we have seen declines in both our persons, both our caregivers and the person living with dementia, both in a home situation and in a long-term care situation. So ideally, we want to take care of both of you. We need to have both of you, because remember what I said, when sitting across that table, your loved one is looking at you as the only life preserver that's going to help them make it through this day. And if something happens to you, they're lost. So we really, I believe this whole expo and what all of the organizers are working on is providing information and tools for a better quality of life for both of you. This is not just about the person living with dementia. This is about the care partners also. They're a really, really important part of this whole journey. It changes you. I am grateful that I had that ability to have this journey with Albert and to be able to share my experiences and to get certifications on more productive and positive care, which is through TIPA Snow. As Renee said, I'm certified and have been a certified independent instructor for the positive approach to care. It works. It is amazing how it works. We are certified dementia practitioners. I was an administrator. I really, through the support groups, they challenged me in finding out different things. And so we do some research. We send out emails on what we have found. It keeps me aware of what is going on with the caregivers, what is the needs. And that's what all of this is about. We want to meet your needs, but we also want to meet the needs of the person living with dementia, because the bottom line is, for me, is the more that we understand about the person living with dementia, the more that we can educate the physicians on what is happening to my particular person, what is happening to them during this time of dementia. It is a remarkable interaction with being able to help both of you. And being able to change your environment through non-pharmaceutical interventions and dancing and doing things that you might think are silly or might think are not as important, like journaling, you will see huge benefits, huge benefits. And let me see if there was any other, I don't think there was any other questions, but I do thank you for your time and the ability for me to speak to you. And if you do have any questions or anything that you need, feel free to reach out to Renee or Johnny or any of the folks that you've come in contact with, and they can get in touch with me. And I wish luck for the rest of the conference and enjoy your day. Thank you so much.